Call Haloya Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakwadash. Call Haloya Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakwadash. Call Haloya Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakwadash. It's the name of the Father and the Heavenly Son and the Holy Spirit. I want to give a double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock of Israel. Shalom to all you brothers out here pushing the words of truth and sincerity. Shalom to all the Akim and Akwav listening. All right, Israelite foreigners scattered abroad. You know, we as depicted, spotted a few days ago in Germany. Wars in the midst, wars brewing. That kind of had me in the spirit to go into, Spirit led me to go back into some of the victories of Saul, some of the victories of David, just that timeline, 2 Samuels and Chronicles and Kings, and just get some history of the scriptures, right, from the Old Testament, right? So I'm just going to read this. Basically this is, I believe this is NATO, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these are NATO tanks. They're going through Germany and going to the border at Poland or whatnot to be at the forefront of the vanguard of what's going on with the Russian invasion. All right. But we in the time of war for sure. Right. It might not be America's troops right now that's getting bloodied, but we right around that corner of the Third World War and so forth and so on, man. The time of Jacob's trouble. So just getting back into the basics of our history and the times in which we were fighting valiantly as warriors with swords in our hands and bows and arrows and slings. This is just a part, like a summary from this Bible I have in my hands called the KJV Cross Reference Study Bible. It says Saul's and David's victories. It says Yahweh enabled both Saul and David to experience victory over enemies. 1 Samuel 14:47 states that Saul fought against all the enemies surrounding the nation of Israel. Specifically, there were two groups of people mentioned in 1 Samuel 14 concerning the victories of Saul. The first were those living in the promised land who boasted of a racial connection with the Jewish nation. Moabites from the line of Lot, Ammonites from the line of Lot, Edomites from the line of Esau. These people today, Moabites, so-called Chinese, Ammonites, so-called Japanese, and Edomites, so-called Caucasian, so-called white people. You are of the line of Esau. This war, this battle going on in Europe is also people of the line of Esau. So as the Moabites, Ammonites, and Edomites were all hostile to Israel, even though they traced their lineage through Abraham, just as the Israelites did. Yahweh allowed Saul to experience victory over these tribes. Saul defeated each of them, as well as two other Gentile enemies who fought against the Israelites. The kings of Zobah, located in Syria, the Philistines, a group that likely originated from Crete and later migrated to Canaan. David enjoyed even greater triumph over Israel's enemies than his predecessor Saul. Saul realized that David would be the one who would take the throne after he died, knowing this caused him to fear David. As a result, Saul hatched a plan to have David killed. First, he offered his daughter Michal to David in marriage. David did not have the resources to pay the bride price. In lieu of paying any money for the marriage, Saul required David to bring him the foreskins of 100 Philistines. David succeeded, and then some, by overcoming 200 Philistines. Though David ultimately relied on Yahweh for victory, he also benefited from the military prowess of at least 30 special soldiers known as David's mighty men. Many of these warriors joined David when he was still a fugitive from Saul. They remained by his side throughout the 40-year reign. 3 of the mighty men that formed David's inner circle and served David wholeheartedly were Adino, Eleazar, and Shammah. So David had all types of mighty men around him throughout his 40-year reign, but he had at least 30 special soldiers. And then he had 3 who were the top. the inner circle, Adino, Eleazar, and Shammah. And I'm going to get into that real quick. Why not? Why not? Now, when you go into, I'll start here at, on the left is KJV, on the right is NLT. All right, so the first thing I noticed here is starting at 2 Samuel 23:8. These be the names of the mighty men whom David had. The Tachmonite, the Tachmonite that sat in the seat, chief among the captains. The same was Adino the Eznite. He lifted up his spear against 800, whom he slew at one time. Now, I'm not going to get it, but when you check out First Chronicles 11 and 10, it gives the same account, but it's read a little different. It says here, verse 11, and this is the number of the mighty men whom David had, Jashobeam and Hachmonite, the chief of the captains. All right, so on this side, it tells you about a man named Jachnobeam, but on 2 Samuel 23, it tells you about a man named Adino. These are the same men. They're referencing the same men. And when I read the caption here, it says David had a reputation as a great warrior, and he seemed to attract others who were also noteworthy in battle. He collects a small army of about 600 men while on the run from King Saul. 1 Samuel 27:2. Several of their names are recorded. A sampling of their exploits is also provided, although few details are given. Slight variations of names and details occur between this Chronicles account and the parallel account in 2 Samuel 23, but the list is overall quite consistent. So you're going to have slight variations. A lot of these came from the Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe, what I just read in Chronicles, and another caption. And it came from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and as translated, some of these wording, like sometimes they'll say a man was 44 years old, and in another chapter it'll say, or another book it'll say 22 years old. Some of these was mistranslated. All right, very, very few, but out of the entirety of the scriptures, there's very few mistranslations, and people will hawk on that and lose sleep over that and lose faith over that, over a mistranslation. These things was written down and copied from one scroll to the next, so there were room for human error. Now, going back to 2 Chronicles right here, you see the word Tachmonite. Now, if I read it right here in the NLT on the right, it says these are the names of David's mightiest warriors. The first was Jashobeam, the Tachmonite. See, they get that name Jashobeam from the First Chronicles 11 and 11. All right, so you link those two up. You might say, well, that's not in the KJV but that's from the same. That's the same person from Chronicles. Jashobeam the Hachmonite. You see, it says Tachmonite here. This is referring to Jashobeam, who is the leader of the three, the mightiest warriors among David's men. Now, here it says the Tachmonite. The Tachmonite, by the way, when you pull it up, I got it right here. Tachmonite. Tachmonite means thou wilt make me wise. As you can see, descriptive designation of Jesheb-Basheth, one of David's mighty warriors. Tachmonite, thou shalt make me wise. It says descriptive designation. A designation means a name, description, or title, typically one that is officially bestowed. All right, the choosing and naming of someone to be the holder of an official position. So he was the one that makes, thou will make me wise. It also says here sagacious. The word sagacious means having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment, shrewd, knowledgeable, intelligent, clever, wise. So essentially, the title that David bestowed upon his highest warrior, whose name was also Jesheb. All right. Or if you go into Chronicles, First Chronicles, his name was also Jashobeam. It says, chief among the captains. I'm going back to the KJV. Chief among the captains, because he had three main captains, right? Three main captains of his whole three close inner circle guys, right? Warriors. So the same was Adino the Esnite. He lifted up his spear to fight against 800 who slew him at one time. And after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo the Ahahite, one of the three mighty men with David. So remember, one of the three, because he had three close by him at all times. When they defied the Philistines that were gathered together to battle, and the men of Israel were gone away, he arose and smote the Philistines until his hand was weary and his hand clave unto the sword. And the Lord wrought a great victory that day, and the people returned after him only to spoil. All right, so the Lord had him just slaughter hundreds of men by himself, even after the Israelite army fled, it says here. All right. It says, and after him was Shammah, the son of Agee, the Hararite. And the Philistines were gathered together into a troop, where was a piece of ground full of lentils. And the people fled from the Philistines, but he stood in the midst of the ground and defended it and slew the Philistines, and the Lord wrought a great victory. So these men had such a spirit on them that even as the enemy began to or their own army began to retreat and flee, these men stood stiffly, and the Lord was with them and caused them to have a great victory alone on their own. Mighty men. So it says, and the 3 of the 30 chief went down and came to David in the harvest time unto the cave of Adullam, and the troop of the Philistines pitched in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in an hold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David longed and said, oh, that one would give me drink of the water of the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate. So there, Bethlehem is being occupied right now by the Philistines, but David's outside of that in another town, not too far away, and was wishing that he can have some of that water from Bethlehem, from the well. Verse 16. And the 3 mighty men brake through the host of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. Nevertheless, he would not drink thereof, but poured it out unto the Lord. So these 3 men, while the Philistines besieged Bethlehem, or taking over Bethlehem, occupying that town, these men even snuck in just so David could have some water to drink. But when they returned with the water, David wouldn't drink it. He poured it out unto the Lord. He said, be it far from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Is not this the blood of the men that went in jeopardy of their lives? Therefore he would not drink it. These things did these 3 mighty men. So basically, as you can see on the right, the Lord forbid that I should drink this, he explained. This water is as precious as the blood of the men who risked their lives to bring it to me. So David did not drink. And that's the type of things that you would get from David's mighty men, which was 3 out of the 30. It says, and Abishai, the brother of Joab and the son of Zeruiah, was chief among the 3. Abishai, and he was chief among 3. And he lifted up his spear against 300 and slew them, and had the name among 3. All right, so altogether you got those 3. Adino, which is also his name is also here, Jesheb. All right, Jesheb. And then you have Eleazar, and then you have Shema. All right. So it says, yeah, and it says, and Abishai, the brother of Joab, and the son of Zeruiah. Zeruiah was chief among three. And as you can see here, it says, was a leader of 30. So this, obviously, Abishai is not part of that three. All right. And that's why this, the small print on, the Bible, dictionary, or the study Bible, say there's some variations in names and details occur between the two accounts, one in Chronicles and one in Samuel's. I'm going to digress. It says, and he lifted up his spear against 300 and slew them, and had a name among three. It says here, and Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, was the leader of the 30. He once used his spear to kill 300 enemy warriors in a single battle. It was such feats that he became as famous as the three. It says, was he not most honorable of the three? Once again, Abishai was the most famous of the 30 and was commander. It says, therefore was their captain, howbeit he attained not unto the first three. So he became captain of the 30 because he was more famous as them, but he didn't. He wasn't top three as far as David was concerned. All right. And Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done many acts, he slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and slew a lion in the midst of a pit in the time of snow. And he slew an Egyptian, a goodly man. I got goodly man here because I wanted to stop here because as a Christian would read this, it sounds like he's killing a good man, right? Sometimes you gotta go back to what a Christian is reading verbatim and what they would hear, especially if they following the Israelites. You're gonna get more of a definition descriptive of what that means. See, a goodly man, the goodly Egyptian doesn't mean he's good, he's sweet, he's honorable, he's loyal, he's faithful, he's just. It just means his appearance. He's a spectacle. He's something to look at. All right. He's favored. All right. He's something to look at. His visage. All right. The sight of him. Okay. Meaning he must have been something to look at. Muscular, whatever. Tone, definition, however you want to put it. But that's what it means. His appearance, his look. All right. His form. All right. So it was something he was something to look at, you know. You go back to all right. It says, and he slew an Egyptian, a goodly man, you know, or a man of spectacle, or a man of a certain physique. And the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but he went down to him with a staff and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and slew him with his own spear. These things had Benaniah, the son of Jehoiada, and had the name among 3 mighty men. He was more honorable than the 30, but he attained not to the first 3, and David sent him over his guard. So David is watching all of these mighty men, and you can see their attributes and how valiant these men are. So he decided to set some of the valiant men over the rest of the men. And it gives the names of these men. All right. You know, even Uriah the Hittite, 30 and 7 in all. All right. So 37. So there was 37. All right. So, you know, this is just a little going into some of the history based on the actions that we're seeing and the actions that we're about to be in. You know, the Lord didn't cause and raise up a whole lot of mighty men. Not many mighty, the scriptures say. The Lord is going to use the meek and the humble to confound the wise in this time. Meaning our light shines brighter than the light of the so-called wise ones and the collegiate and the learned ones out here. because the Lord deals with a smaller number. Even as he just dealt with the 30, then David had all types of warriors, but he only had 37 that are mighty men, considerably mighty men, 3 at the top of that. So yeah, brothers, just keep in memory how our forefathers was very valiant men. We come from valiant lines, some of us, and then that doesn't mean that you have to be one of those mighty men to enter into the kingdom. All right, because the Lord promised that He's going to give be a rock for Israel. As a matter of fact, let's get back into the first few verses of 2 Samuel 23. Now these be the last words of David. David, the son of Jesse, said, and the man who raised up on high, the anointed of Yahweh of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel, as David said, the Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The power of Israel, the rock of Israel, spake to me, he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of Yahweh. So ultimately, man, even the king has to be just, or the Lord's going to take him down. You've seen that throughout the book of Kings and Chronicles and Samuels. You see kings falling, especially Kings and Chronicles. All right, falling one after another because they weren't just. Ruling in the fear of Yahweh. It says, as he shall be as the light of the morning when the sun riseth, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springeth out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Although my house be not with Yahweh, be not so with Yahweh, yet he hath made me with an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure. So the covenant is everlasting. These promises that we read about that the Most High have towards Israel, towards King David and his descendants, who Yahweh came out of, and the blessing that came out of Yahweh, which is the offering of salvation to the elect, to those that turn back towards Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua of the nation of Israel. All right, so the offering of salvation. All right, these things are sure and everlasting. It says, ordered in all things and sure. All right, for this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he make it not to grow. When you read verse 5 in the NLT, it says, it is not my family. Is it not my family Yahweh has chosen? Yes, he has made an everlasting covenant with me. His agreement is arranged and guaranteed in every detail. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see all of the promises that the Father Yahweh has made to King David. You're going to see all of these promises come back to pass. Let me see if I could find what I had earlier in 2 Samuel's. This is the last point I'm going to make. 7, I believe it's 14. I'm going to start at 12. And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. That was David's heir, Solomon. David's heir, Solomon, came back as Yahweh in the reincarnation. Hello. Which makes sense when you read on. It says, he shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Yeah, when Yahweh comes back, his throne will be established forever. It says, I will be his father, and he will be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. When Solomon committed iniquity, he wasn't chastised with the rod of men for going off in his older age. He was chastised with the rod of men when he returned to Yahweh. That's how the Lord do to the second and third generation. Not acquitting the, passing down the iniquity of their fathers to the third, fourth generation. Meaning when you come back on this earth, you're going to be chastised for what you have done, right? Knowing this after death. I forget how that scripture go. But there's a lot of scriptures referring to knowing pain after death. It says, but my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I'll put away for thee. So Lord willing, this video is edifying. All right, until next time, shalom.